Hey, everybody. This is Not Your Mother's Day Fantasy League podcast. I'm your host, Mike. As always, we are joined by our esteemed analyst, Dave, who does the research so you don't have to. And we've got a special guest. It is Rich, the GM from the still alive Miami Dolphins. How we doing, guys?
Good.
I'm doing well, Mike. How you doing, Rich? Rich, thanks for joining us tonight.
Yeah.
So, well, Mike, where do you want to kick us off at tonight?
We're going to go over the pick'em like we normally do. We'll jump into these playoff matchups, and then we're going to have a little Q&A for Rich here, who just always seems to be alive this time of year. So maybe we need that advice to jumpstart our teams going into next year. At least I didn't even make the playoffs this year, so
Not only alive at the playoffs, but his team is always hot. His team always plays well at the end of the year.
That's a good week.
It takes more than 1 week to be hot, so it takes 3 or 4, to be hot at the end of the season. So you're obviously onto something.
It certainly doesn't hurt when your quarterback scores 6 touchdowns.
That does make it easy.
And we'll talk about that also. So
one of the best quarterbacks in the league, so that certainly helps. So let's jump into these pick'em picks here. If I can find the right, there we go.
There you go.
It is still close because unfortunately for Dave, he forgot to set his 1 o'clock picks a couple weeks ago.
Or they didn't take.
Yeah.
But anyways.
But this is just staying tight right up here at the top with really 4 teams still very much alive.
Well, let's do point out Cincinnati Nick pulling up the rear at a 126, currently 12 games behind. And let's not make fun of his Atlanta pick over Minnesota. He was the only one looking for that upset. I'll also point out he was also the only one taking the Packers over Detroit in Detroit. So he's kind of grasping at straws right now, and it's not paying off for him.
No, he is going for reaches to try to catch up, and it is certainly not working. He is distancing himself in the wrong way, but is really anybody's game right now. So keep setting those lineups. This thing's going to be alive for a while.
I am surprised he didn't take his Bears and his Caleb Williams and his Bears against San Francisco yesterday.
Yeah, well, somebody obviously wasn't very confident in that matchup, but Jordan, who unfortunately laid an egg on these 1 o'clock games, did take the Bears.
He did take Chicago.
Yeah, so. All right, let's get to the meat and potatoes of this show. Of course, it is playoff season, and we have 6 matchups going this week. Who is still alive and who is eliminated?
Well, we have 6 matchups this weekend, and I will say it has not been kind to the higher seed or the better seed and the division champs. So, but we'll start off with one division champ that always puts out a good lineup there. The Bills and the Patriots. This is another AFC East matchup. The Bills coming in at 13-4, having the number 3 seed against Joey and his Patriots, 12-5. Currently, Jeremy's up by 47 points. He's got 5 players left. He's got a lot of power left with Jamar Chase. Of course, he's got his punter and kicker. And then he's got 2 linebackers and Kendrickson and Pratt left. So Jeremy's got a lot of power left. Not to be outdone by Joey and his Patriots. He does have Joe Burrow and CeeDee Lamb going. But 2 versus 5 and having to overcome that 47-point deficit, I don't think that's going to happen.
Not looking like it. It looks like the Bills should advance, and we kind of saw this coming very early in the season. He's got a very good, deep team. I find this interesting that this was the matchup of the Buccaneer running backs, and this is not how it's looked most of this season. It's actually been Bucky Irving taking most of these snaps, and all of a sudden, Rachaad White here in this game taking more of the snaps this time. So
well, in Bucky's defense, I'll defend Bucky a little bit. I've got him in some of my leagues in my other worlds. Bucky was questionable for this game, so he was questionable whether he was even going to play, and did have a sore back or a stiff back or whatever. How that happened, I don't know. Don't want to know. But anyways, they gave the bulk of the carries to Rashad White, so instead of Bucky. So maybe they're saving him for next week because I know that I'm going to need him next week somewhere else.
Side note about Rashad White, I paid him way too much based off of last year's production. He has not met it, so I paid him too much, put him on taxi. That's how Joey got him. I do not expect him to tender his $17 million contract next year. I expect him to be a free agent while he's on his last year of taxi eligibility.
Well, those 34 points would look good on your roster right now, Mike.
Well, they certainly would, but I'm done. And 34 wouldn't have even put me in the top 5 this week. So,
no, but it would have got you closer.
Yeah, possibly.
So.
All right. So, yeah, this one is done. This is the only favorite that will be advancing because we have our upset of the week right here.
we have this is a huge upset. I kind of wish it could get Gavin on here to talk to him about it to even realize what he did here. He's playing against the number 2 seed. Gavin's up by 15 points. He's got a cornerback in Lewis left. Matt and his Raiders, all he's got left is his coach, Zach Taylor, and his high point for the year is 10 points, and that probably, unless Lewis picks off some balls and fumbles it or something like that, I don't know how a cornerback will get negative points. But I don't see a coach getting 15 points. So this one's huge, a huge win for Gavin when you don't have Lamar Jackson or Derrick Henry at your disposal for this game. So, I've been eyeing this game for quite a while. If Gavin was going to make the playoffs, I knew that he was going to be in trouble because he had a lot of players on bye. And the fact that he's going to overcome that handicap is remarkable.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody would have started Jared Goff over Baker against the Raiders secondary, but had he done so, that is an additional 12. But I think he probably still loses this matchup.
Yeah. But anyways, it's a good job by Gavin. Gavin's going to advance out of this one.
I think he sat Neighbors too. And he went with Reed instead of Neighbors.
Oh yeah,
I would have switched that out, but the quarterback, he couldn't do anything about it.
Yeah, no, that you can't blame that matchup. But yeah, Reed gave him a goose egg this week. That's a tough one.
Yeah.
So there was potential here to potentially pull this off. That's gonna be tough for him, especially taking that 1 seed into the playoffs like you did.
Well, the interesting thing about this is that the 7 seed, I don't know. I didn't research this back too far, but I do know that both 7 seeds are going to win this week. And, the guy we're going to talk to next with Miami Rich, he was a 7 seed last year. Yeah. And he cleaned house all the way to the championship game where he came up a game short, taking out the 2 seed and then the 1 seed. And then ran into Sean's voodoo magic of throwing out whatever quarterback scraps he could find that week.
Yeah. But yeah, this is just absolutely huge to be able to pull this off with the Lamar and Henry buys against our number 2 seed here. So good job, Gavin. So, moving on to Rich's matchup here. He's got this thing in the bag with 2 more to go.
Rich has got this one in the bag. He's up by 41. He's still got Chase Brown and his cornerback Bland. He's having a down year. Last year he had 6 pick 6s for you.
Yeah, he just came back.
Yeah, he just came back. So he owes you a couple pick 6s for that on there. But
yeah, that'll be next week.
So maybe you'll need it for next week. That's right. You're saving it for next week. But anyways, I want to bring Rich on. He's advancing into next week. This is his 2nd year making the playoffs. The first year in the league. He's an original member of the MDFL, one of the co-founders when we started it. The first year he was there, his team got hot. He took that 217 pick that first year. And then he's been on a late run each of these last 2 years. So Rich, what's your secret about getting your team motivated and ready to play at playoff time every year? What's your secret?
It's matchups. Look at matchups. Like week 1, I start looking at matchups for week 14 and try to line those up. I've got 12 different players on my squad right now that did not start on my squad. I've got rid of 8 guys that are on my squad originally, and then all my draft picks. just to trade to get those matchups later on in the season. So I had 5 linebackers on bye week 14 originally, so I had to trade those off.
So how many of those 14 or week 14 bye linebackers you still have on your squad now?
One.
So,
yeah.
So you're quietly moving your roster to your future matchups.
There you go. Yeah.
Write that down, Mike. We need that for next year.
Yeah,
So,
right.
Yeah.
You might want to take note of that yourself, Dave, with your 24 week 14 buys.
my plan this year was just to count on a loss that week, and somehow I squeaked one out. So sorry about that to the Buccaneers, but it was crazy. So
yeah, huge week for you here. You only had 2 guys in single digits, one of them being your best linebacker, Fred Warner.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. That guy. He's struggling.
Then, yeah,
it just means he's due next week.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And then he over here on this end had Jordan Addison on the bench with 42. Ooh.
Ouch.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, but you got a question. You got a question? Has he been playing Jordan Addison on a regular basis, though?
No.
And Jordan Addison hasn't been putting those numbers up every
right.
week.
No, he hasn't. And if you look at the 5 guys he started, I don't think any one of us would have made that call either. So
right.
Yep, can't blame him for that.
Yeah. So luck does play a large part.
So, Rich, I got to ask. So, this is going to set up a rematch again. You're going to be playing Jeremy and the Bills next week. You guys are 1-1 this year. Been talking and bragging up your AFC East all year long that you guys are the powerhouse in the AFC, that division, and you guys just beat on one another. And now it's down to you and Jeremy, both 1-1 on the year against each other. And now the winner of next week's game between you two goes to the AFC Championship game. What are you going to say about that?
Well, Buffalo, I had Buffalo pick as the best team all year long, and his trades, just excellent trades, just make his team even better. I felt like it was Buffalo, then Bengals, then Patriots. So that's why I had trade so much, because I kind of figured I would even be in the mix. But I just got hot at the end. Some of the players I did trade for paid off. So yeah, I don't want this matchup. I'd rather have Nick.
So you'd rather have Nick playing now?
I would rather have Nick this week. Yeah.
It's interesting that probably all 3 of you would rather be playing Nick right now. So I wonder what Nick has to say about that. Nick being the weak one, so going in off of a bye, and they'll probably be a little rusty next week. So we'll see about that.
Yeah, hopefully.
So there could be a changing of the guard in the AFC North if Gavin's able to knock him off. I did check it. I don't believe that Gavin has ever beaten Nick in the playoffs, or not in the playoffs, but anytime in regular season.
Yeah,
that would be a huge win for him and the AFC North.
Yeah.
So, well, anyways, congratulations with winning. Good luck next week.
Thank you.
Thanks for the advice of how we should be treating our players according towards bye week. So,
yeah, if the bye is on a playoff week, the bye's earlier, it doesn't really matter. It's just a bad week. But once that hits that week 14, it's the first playoff game. You got to have all your best players in there, not on bye.
Yeah. So here, Jeremy's checking in. Crazy how comparable our teams are. Same record and separated by only 11 points on the season. You guys were neck and neck tight all year long, and Joey was right there with you too.
He's got a great team too. It's a bad week for him.
And you can't. I get it. The Braxton as Jets were, out of it record wise, but he's still got a team that when that team shows up, he's enough to cause.
Yeah, he beat me earlier in the year.
Okay, so food for note here. Rich would rather play Nick. Okay.
Calling out the 1 seed. Love it.
Yep. Everybody's after the 1 seed. I think that 1 seed may be a kiss of death after the wild card teams did their thing.
I was gonna say, it worked last year. So
I saw it work last year, and I see it in play again this week too.
I also last week laid the blueprint for how to beat him. So you just got to call him out ahead of time. Right. So we're going with it here.
Yeah.
Well, Mike, you might have been onto something. You took down the Raiders. I mean, you brought them back into the crowd, and then you brought Rich back or Nick back into the crowd.
Yeah.
All you can do is sit on the sidelines playing for 217 now.
But the blueprint has been laid out. Call them out ahead of time, and they buckle under the pressure.
All right.
Where is Nick? I don't see him. Oh, no.
He's probably afraid of Gavin right now. Can't believe Gavin's going to get a victory and see what's going to happen. So,
all right, here we go.
all right, let's
So
move over to the NFC.
well,
First of
Dave,
all, this one's rough. I had too much Minnesota Falcons in real life yesterday. If it wasn't Sam Darnold tearing us apart in real life, it was Josh Allen tearing me apart in the AFC in my fantasy world. Horrible times for players to be out. Had Kincaid out. McConkey was a late time scratch. He had the 8 o'clock game, so he was scratched at about 7:30. Had to go dig in on the free agent list to find a player. Darius Davis, God bless him, he gave me 9 points, but that's 9 points more than what I was expecting out of him. And of course, Quincy Williams didn't show up at all. Sherwood showed up big. But anyways, I'm down. Where am I at here? I'm down by 12 points. He's got 2 players left. Hayden's got a lot of firepower left, and CeeDee Lamb and T. Higgins. I've got Dallas's offense. I've got a defensive tackle. Osa can't pronounce his last name, and a cornerback, Cam Taylor-Britt. So mathematically, I'm alive. I just don't think it's going to happen.
You've been called out, Nick.
Nick has been called out, dude. Rich may not. Rich, if Nick doesn't take care of business next week, Rich may not be able to get his chance to play Nick in 2 weeks.
Man, it's crazy, Dave, is that really it could just come down to this huge week from Josh Allen because there's nobody else on this team that really blew up. I mean, 29 out of a linebacker is nice, but everything else here is about average or lower.
Well, I got 2 players that, 2 of my flex 5 that are not my normal players. They struggled. I had Nick Bosa out again. I was lucky enough to get a sack right away from Ebiketie. That's at the beginning of the game, and then he didn't do shit the rest of the game. I really bummed about that. Quincy Williams went off for 0. One mistake I had was I started Derek Carr. I thought he would do better against the Giants defense, but I think he fractured his hand or broke his hand or something like that.
That was a horrible play.
Yeah, and I should have started Stafford against the Bills. I didn't realize that was going to be a shootout, but that'd be 15 points. That'd probably put us even right now. Even if we're even, I still don't think my 3 is going to overcome what CeeDee Lamb's going to do tonight to the Bengals.
Yeah. You also had DeForest Buckner on a bye. That's a big loss too.
Yes, it is. And like I said, I got a scrub. I don't want to call him a scrub, but I got a Cowboys defensive tackle. Maybe he can go off for a career night. I need somebody to go off big, give me a shot against Hayden. So just too much Minnesota, Atlanta for me this weekend in real life and fantasy life. So congrats to Hayden if I don't get to talk to him before that. But I'm giving you the victory tonight so far, unless something drastic happens.
He's calling it. Wow.
So
the rest of them kind of look like they're over. This one is going to get out of hand.
This one's over. Again, I wanted to talk to Chicago Mike tonight. Interesting because last week at this time he was on the outside looking in. Wasn't sure. He had to have Carolina lose a game for him to get into the playoffs. So he was on the outside looking in. I snuck in with the 7 seed, and it looks like he's going to take off the number 2 seed. The bad part for Dan is, he's got Lamar Jackson, who's obviously on a bye this week. Stuck with playing Caleb Williams, even though Caleb put up 23 points. Still part of that Chicago offense that didn't do a whole lot. But let's see, Washington, they have their punter left. So I'm sure that if Scott Rams was here, punters, he would say that the punters could probably make it, but not going to happen tonight. Chicago, he's still got his coach left and 2 linebackers, both in Kendricks and Pratt. So he's going to add to his score. And I probably, he could hit 400 tonight. So
Wow.
it's a real good chance he could hit 400.
Call me. I won't say anything. Call me crazy, but I just don't have a ton of confidence in DeAndre Swift. And Jawan Jennings has been their leading receiver for a while there. But hey, that I'm not in the playoffs. But I'd be wanting to start Jennings over Swift 9 times out of 10. But he's going to win anyway, so it doesn't matter.
He's winning. He's moving on, and it's going to be interesting because we're going to have another. We're talking about the NFC North over here. We talked about the AFC East being powerful. The NFC North just as powerful over here. We got 3 out of our final 4 teams next week. So we got another rematch between Chicago and Green Bay. Green Bay gets that number 1 seed bye. They play the lower seed, and I don't know if I'd be wanting to play the Bears right now, who's going to be probably putting up 400 points in week number 1 of the playoffs.
Yeah. Yep. All right. So last matchup of the week, and this one is final.
This one's final also. Philly Shannon, he's up by 18 points. He's got 1 player left, defensive end, Osasi from, I believe he's Cincinnati. San Francisco's out of players. So it's a good game for Shannon. He's moving on. Came into the weekend as the 5 seed. Like I said, probably unless something happens drastically with me, the 2, 3, and 4 seeds are probably all going to be eliminated by wildcard teams this week. So that's not a good sign for Mike and his Green Bay Packers, waiting to see who he's going to play this weekend.
So that is all of the current playoff matchups, all of them pretty much final, unless Dave gets some crazy luck.
Yeah, I'm going to need some crazy lucks and maybe CeeDee Lamb to get a pulled hamstring early or something like that. T. Higgins, maybe food poisoning. Something's always coming up that T. Higgins, every time I had him on my roster, he always had some reason why he couldn't play. So why not tonight, huh?
It's true.
So it's my fantasy world. That's how I live it.
Maybe he'll get sick on some Skyline chili. So Dave, I believe you also said you have the top 3 candidates, the top 3 leaders for that 217 right now.
Yes. So we talked about the 217 pick. Week number 1 in the playoffs is almost in. We'll talk about the AFC. I'll just go over the top 3 teams right now. Very good week for Sean and his Denver Broncos. Sean put up a 351 spot. I did not go over if they've got any players left, so I'm only going with what's there. So Sean's off to a lead at 351. Pittsburgh was second with a 290. Who's he? Oh, yeah, he had Sam Darnold. Yeah, I saw that live yesterday. 54. That was ugly.
Yeah.
So Pittsburgh's second place with 290. I don't know. Click on see if he's got anybody left. He does have 2 left. I have no idea who they are. He's out of flex players. It doesn't matter. It looks like it doesn't matter. Anyways,
not enough to score 60.
Not enough for 60, but he obviously wants to get some points, keep it close. Charbonnet, Jim, you've got to learn to play Charbonnet when Kenneth Walker is out on injury. So,
wow.
Anyways, third place in the AFC, Houston. Josh, he's following it up with 271, 80 points out. Sounds like it's a lot, but you can as well as I do that one bad week could set you back. It's a good start for Denver and Sean to see if he can do it. I don't know if he can do it for 3 more weeks in a row, but yeah, he's never been in that 217 race before. We'll see how he does. Over in the NFC, Carolina Flick, he's off with a 358, and I think he's got 1 left. Not sure who that is. Second place is the Rams, Scott with 302. If he's got a kicker left, he's got a chance to catch him because his kicker always gets him a lot of points. So I got 1 left. Oh, no, he's used both his kickers. And then third is 269 with Detroit Jordan. Again, those are your top 3 for your 217 pick. It's 4 weeks worth. So continue to fight and put those lineups in. It only takes 1 team to mess up to bring everybody back and to make it close. And of course, you want that 217 pick also.
Oh, and apparently the Jets said, fuck it.
Yeah, something like that. We'll check his roster and make sure he doesn't have enough kickers yet. So So, anyways, going into next week, we've got 4 games next week over in the AFC. We should have a Cincy Baltimore matchup, which is a AFC North matchup, and then we get an AFC East matchup. Bills and the Dolphins. Rich and Jeremy, they split this week this year 1-1. I guess whoever wins this one gets the tiebreaker, and they get to move on and have that easy cream puff game against Nick if he ends up getting through. But he's going to have his hands full for Gavin. At least I'm rooting for Gavin, anyways. I'm sure the other 31 owners are also rooting for Gavin. So, over in the NFC, we're going to have NFC North matchup: Green Bay and Chicago. Mike and Mike show. They put on a good show a couple weeks ago when they played each other. They're 1-1 against each other again. The winner of that game, who's going to take the best 2 out of 3 on the season, they're the ones that'll move to the NFC Championship game. And then you got a good matchup with probably Philly and Minnesota, unless I happen to do something. So, anyways, so that's the recap for this week, Mike.
There you go. Just for fun, since I went ahead and put this together real quick, let's call these. So let's make some predictions real fast, just for fun.
Well, for Ravens, I gotta. Let's call it. Let's call it for Ravens right now that he pulls off the upset.
Well, I think he has. I think we need to get him on the show, or at least in Slack, call his shot. So that's what we're going to be trying to do all week. We need to egg him on to get him to call his shot. If he can do that, we all know the Bengals will fold.
Well, first of all, we got to make sure that Gavin even knows that we have a show. We must make sure that he even knows that we have this show, and the fact that we've been talking about him all year long, and his turnaround. I mean, this is a really good year for him, and he's got a good team. Yeah. People would laugh that Derrick Henry's getting paid $40 million, but my golly, his $40 million, he's freaking earning it.
Franchise tag that guy.
Yeah. Seriously. I mean, nobody wants to play Lamar and Derrick Henry right now, simply put. And Nick will not be able to employ CMC. That's going to hurt. So, yeah, he's vulnerable right now. I'd love to see it. We just got to get him to call him out.
Yep, and everybody wants to play Nick and his Bengals right now. You've shown what it takes to beat him, and he's beatable right now.
All right, we got our AFC East matchup. I'm going to call this one for Rich since he came onto the show, but also because he's hot and because Josh Allen's been ridiculous right now.
Well, right. I'm calling a stat correction. Okay, I'm not going to say who, but I'm saying this one's going to Thursday morning. So I think it's going to be a close game. I've said all along, Jeremy's had one of the best teams all year long. His depth is so good. His players are young and cheap. But Rich is the playoff guru. He is just hot this time of year. And I hate to say it, but man, I'm putting my money on Rich. I think he takes him. He's doing another wild card thing, and he's already called his shot that he wants to play Nick and the Bengals. So unless we get Jeremy on here that wants to take on the Bengals also, it's a tough game to call.
Yeah.
Rich, who you calling?
I gotta go with myself. I don't have a good feeling, but yeah, I think I can do it.
So what's your secret about going up against Jeremy in the AFC East here?
Well, I think I only have one Monday night game, so I kind of like that. I don't like Thursdays. I don't like Mondays. If I get them all done on Sunday, I feel better about it, and it lines up that way this week for me. I'd have to check out Jeremy's schedule, see how he's doing.
Well, Jeremy usually keeps himself, along with Nick, usually keeps one or two players back behind him, so he has something to play Monday night.
Yeah.
Sorry, Nick. We've been rooting for Gavin all year long.
Yep.
Dude is probably the most improved team, except for maybe the Raiders, but the Raiders had a lot of talent. Gavin's finally is starting to figure out how this league works, and he's got something going on.
You actually have to pick people up.
Yep.
All right. So if that holds true, then we're looking at a Ravens-Dolphins matchup in the AFC Championship. What about in the NFC here? The Packers, I heard him in the chat. talking about all of his linebacker injuries, he is not very confident going into next week.
Well, I think what he saw was he saw, the playoffs, outside of the Atlanta team, everybody just steps up their game. And it's like, holy shit, these guys are serious. Now they're all good games. And the wild card teams, they did work yesterday. And, Mike and his Bears, he's, like I say, he's got a real good chance of putting up 400 this weekend. And that's a good matchup. And they just played 2 weeks ago. They played 2 weeks ago in that was it the doubleheader weekend or the weekend before that, and it was really tight there, and the Bears won that game. So the Bears have got momentum. The Bears are. I'm picking the Bears. I think he's a hot team right now. He's the number 7 seed. Cinderella story that this time last week he was sitting out as in the number 8 spot, needed to get some help to get in. Rooting for the Commanders, had to root for the Commanders to get in, and then whooped on the Commanders to advance. So interesting how that played out.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the Bears, they're running hot.
So
yep, and I'm with you guys as well. That's 3 of us picking the Bears. I also want to make note that this is fantasy football, and in real life, I would never pick the Bears over the Packers. This Eagles-Vikings matchup, I'm just going to say that the Vikings are battle-tested. How many close matchups has he lost or won? I know this doesn't matter in fantasy football, but I'm just going to say he's battle-tested, and he's going to pull this out.
Hayden is battle-tested. We forget that he's part of that NFC North. I mean, right. he's the Joey of AFC East. Okay, except for that he's advancing. So give Hayden his due. He played this weekend without his 2 top running backs, Derrick Henry and JT. So of course my team laid the egg. So but you want to talk about somebody else who's battle tested is Philly and his Eagles. His loss, a lot of his losses are close games too. Almost beat the Commanders for that NFC East. I think it's a good matchup. I'm sorry, Hayden. I got to pick the Eagles in this matchup. I think if that plays out, I think the Eagles are the stronger of the 2 teams. The Eagles seem to be playing. I mean, the Eagles have had 2 good back-to-back weeks. So that's where I'm going to pick this week.
I'm going Vikings on this one.
So. Yes, Hayden did take him out once, but all I want to say is I just want Cam Brett to have a couple pick sixes tonight, go off for 29, 40 points, something like that, maybe even 68 points to match your Josh Allen outburst, and maybe we're talking about an Eagles-Falcons game, but I am not optimistic about it. So I could be totally wrong, which I normally am.
Hanging the white flag is what he's doing. Or
it's barely up. It's barely up. I'm just not real confident about it right now.
It's the concede early strategy.
Yep. Get Hayden in overconfident that he doesn't even need to start CeeDee Lamb.
If that plays out, we would have an all NFC North NFC championship, the Bears versus Vikings.
Yep. So Hayden, if you're really gutsy, you just go ahead and put CeeDee Lamb on the bench and let T. Higgins do his work tonight. Because it would be fitting, since I traded you T. Higgins, that T. Higgins would officially eliminate me tonight.
So, good stuff.
So we still have some stuff to play out tonight. The AFC is a little bit more set in stone with their 2 wins that are already set. So looking forward to next week.
Yep, it's going to be fun. It's only going to get more intriguing as we go. Anything else, guys, before we call it a night?
I just want to say, Rich, thanks for joining us tonight. Best of luck next week. Those AFC East matchups are always fun. I love the fact that you've already called your shot and that you want to play Nick. It seems like everybody wants to play Nick. I love it that everybody thinks that he's the weak link right now. See how battle-tested he is. So.
Right.
The wounded pup in the pack. Love it. Yes. Thanks for coming on, Rich. Good luck
Yeah,
next
thank you.
week.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for everybody that joined in on the comments. Come and see us the same time next week. We will see you then.
All right. See you guys.
See
Thanks.
ya. Yeah.